Okay, so for today, we'll be discussing stroke. Pag sinabi nating stroke, it is the path followed by the pen in the paper. Ito, yung lahat ng sinusulat mo, lahat yan ay stroke. Okay. So, ito yung mga characteristics ng mga stroke. First is arc. It is a curve formed inside the top curve of a loop as in small letters H, M, N, and P. So, for example, yung nakikita nyo dyan, yung curve form nga, yung nasa looban nun. Inside the top curve, you call that the arc. Okay, kaya kung makikita nyo yung arrow, yung green, ito yung arc. Okay? Yan yung guide para maituro kung saan yung arc. Ayan. Next is the ascender. It is the top portion of a letter or upper loop. An example would be letter D. Other examples are F and H. Lahat ng loop, we call this the loop. At lahat ng loop na nasa itaas banda ay tawag natin dyan ascender. Ayan. Okay, so we have letter D, letter B, L, yung mga yan. Ascender. Next, we have baseline. This may be actually on a ruled paper. It might be imaginary alignment of writing. It is the ruled or imaginary line upon which the writing rests. So basically, your baseline, dyan umaapak yung letra. So katulad dito. Sa example na to, imaginary baseline lang. Kasi wala talagang linya. Nilagyan ko lang para makita nyo na ito yung baseline, yung imaginary baseline niya. And then the ruled baseline, ito ay makikita sa mga ruled paper na meron tayo. For example, yung yellow pad o kaya yung mga notebook natin. Ruled yan. Kaya yung mismong linya, yun na yung baseline. Okay? Diyan umaapak yung mga letra. We also have beaded. These are preliminary embellished initial stroke which usually occurs in capital letters. Ito yung maliit na paikot. Kaya nga sabi, initial, embellished initial stroke. Initial is first. Yung makaartehan ng konti. We call that the beaded. And madalas itong nakikita sa mga capital letters. So of course, we are talking about cursive letters. Okay. Next is blunt. So the beginning and ending stroke of a letter without hesitation. Pag sinabi kasi nating hesitation, pag-aalangan. Paano natin matutukoy kung mayroong pag-aalangan sa sulat? Either makapal ang deposit ng ink kasi nakadiin lang yung pen tapos tuloy-tuloy syempre nagfo-flow yung ink. But in blunt, dire-diretso siya, hindi nag-hesitate. And of course, pag blunt writing, alam natin na hindi forged ang isang document. Kasi kung ikaw naman talaga ang writer ng isang document, bakit ka mag-aalangan sa sarili mong sulat, di ba? So blunt is a determination that a certain document or a certain handwriting is a standard or authentic. Next, we have body, the main portion of the letter, minus the initial of strokes, terminal strokes, and the diacritic, if any. So, for example, the oval of the letter O is the body, minus the downward stroke and the loop. So, katulad dito, inalis yung, or hindi part ng body ang diacritic na ito sa letter J. Kaya ito lang ang body niya. Doon naman sa letter O, hindi nakasama itong initial stroke at saka ending stroke, pati itong nakagawa ng I. Kaya ito lang, yung bilog lang na ito. Yan yung body. Ganun din sa Q. Kung yung bilog lang, yung bold natin, and yung downstroke niya. Pero yung other strokes that are not essential to the letter are not part of the body. Next, we have the bowl. It is a fully rounded oval or circular form on a letter complete into an circle. Into a circle. So, katulad nitong sa letter A, ito yung bowl. Sa letter O, of course, yung buo na. Letter P, ito ang bowl. And letter Q, this is the bowl. Next, we have the buckle knot. It is a loop made, flourished, which is added to the letters as in the small letters K, and B, or in capital letters A, K, and P, the horizontal end loop stroke that are often used to complete a letter. So, eto yon yung buckle or buckle knot. Yung kumbaga nagko-connect sa isang stem at saka doon sa curve na ginawa mo. Tulad nito. Ito ang buckle or buckle knot. Sa letter B, ito siya. And sa letter P, ito. Yung tinutukoy dyan na the horizontal end loop. Horizontal to. And this is the end loop. Ito yung huling stroke na gagawin mo dyan eh. That are often used to complete the letter. Those are the buckle knot. Next is the descender. The lower portion of the letter. For example, is in letter F. This is the descender. Letter G, letter J, madami pa, letter Z, letter P, letter Q, lahat yon ay may descender. Basta, ito yung loop na nasa baba na ng baseline. Next is the diacritic. So, T crossings, these are T crossings, yung cross ng T, and dots of the letter I and J. So, this one. So, the matters of Indian script are also known as diacritic sign, an element added to complete a certain letter, either a cross bar or a dot. So, these are your diacritics, which are not part of the body of the letter. Ending or terminate or terminal stroke. This is the end stroke of the letter. So, yung last part, yung huling stroke na ginawa mo sa isang letra. So, for example, dito sa letter D, ito yun. Sa letter G and sa letter I. These are your ending strokes. Next is eyelet or eye loop. This is a small loop or curve inside the letters. This may occur inside the oval of the letters A, D, and O. The small loop formed by the stroke that extend in divergent direction as in small letters. Yung mga small oval or circles na makikita sa loob ng isa ring circle or isang bowl na parte ng letter is called eyelet or eye loop. Katulad nitong sa letter A. 'Di ba? Ito yung bowl. Then sa loob niya may oval or circle ulit. Ito yun yung eye. Ganun din sa letter D. So ito yung bowl, then ito yung eye. Ganun din sa letter O, this is the eye. Next is the foot, the lower part which rests on the baseline. Yung parte ng letra na umaapak sa baseline. Pero tandaan natin na usually it has a vertical stem. Katulad nito, N, M, and T. So the small letter M has 3 feet, katulad nito. And then the small letter N has 2 feet. And of course, the letter T has 1. Next is habits. Any repeated elements or details which may serve to individualize writing. Ito, yung mga paulit-ulit na makikita sa sulat mo. Yun yung habits. So, for example, etong letter Y. Kung mapapansin nyo, yung letter Y niya ay pag ganito ang shape. Yung terminal stroke ng letter Y, ganito. Tapos, dito rin. Yan, habit yan. Kasi, kumbaga, ito yung talaga yung nakasanayan niyang paraan ng pagsusulat sa letter Y. Okay? Ganun din sa diacritic ng letter I. Paslant to the left siya. Tulad nito, sa details, then dito sa which, individualize and writing. Yan, slant to the left siya. And these are habits. Kapag nakikita nyo to sa handwriting examination na ginagawa ninyo, masasabi natin na malaking factor to para matukoy kung ang isang kung ang isang questioned document na ini-examine mo ay iisa ang nagsulat base dun sa standard na pinagbabasehan mo. Standard document na pinagbabasehan mo. Ito yan, yung mga yan, yung habits. Next is hesitation, yung sinasabi natin kanina na pag-aalangan. The term applied to the irregular thickening of ink which is found when writing slows down or stop while the pen take a stock of the position. So, for example, ito. Pag medyo bumagal ang pagsusulat, masasabi nating merong hesitation. Paano natin masasabi bumagal ang sulat? Kapag medyo kumapal yung ink. Especially sa ganito na sign pen ang gamit. Mabilis bumaba yung ink 'di ba? Kaya mapapansin natin. And mapapansin din ninyo na merong tremors. So for example, dito. Ayan, hindi siya normally hindi naman magsa-stop ang writer sa part na to kapag letter H ang sinusulat niya. Ganun din sa letter N. Sa shoulder, hindi naman nag-i-stop dyan. Actually, dire-diretso yan. But, mapapansin ninyo, mas makapal na part ito kumpara dito sa iba. Ganun din dito. Tsaka may tremors. Ganun din dito. Okay, yan, hesitation. Pag-aalangan. Kapag nakita nyo sa examination, na sa document na ini-examine ninyo na merong hesitation, i-note nyo na siya. Masasabi natin na ito ay isang characteristic na inconsistent doon sa standard na ginagamit natin. Next is hook. It is a minute curve or ankle which often occurs at the end of the terminal stroke. It also sometimes occurs at the beginning of the initial stroke. So, pwedeng sa terminal stroke or sa initial stroke. The terminal curves of letters A, D, N, M, P, U is the hook. In the small letter W, the initial curve is a hook. The minute involuntary talon-like formation found at the commencement of an initial upstroke or the end terminal stroke. Kaya, ito yung mga yan. These are hook. Initial and terminal. Mga maliliit na parang talon-like, parang kuko. Kuko ng ibon. Yan. Okay? Next is hump. The upper portion of letters M, N, H, and K. The rounded outside of the top of the bent stroke or curve in a small letter. Ito yung hump, yung nasa taas. Kung maalala nyo kanina, yung pinakauna nating stroke characteristic is arc. Yun naman yung nasa loob. Okay? Kung ito ang tutukuyin, arc. Kung yung nasa labas naman is the hump. Okay? Next is knob. It is the extra deposit of the ink in the initial terminal stroke due to the slow withdrawal of the pen from the paper. So usually applicable to fountain pen or sign pens. Katulad nito. Kung mapapansin ninyo, mas makapal itong part na to kumpara dun sa iba. Kumbaga yung nakaapak lang yung ballpen mo, tapos parang naghihintay ka magsulat. That's called knob. Okay. Next is ligature connection or ductus. It is the stroke which connects two strokes of the letter. It is characterized by connected stroke between letters. Yung mga nagko-connect sa mga letra. Of course, this can only be found in cursive writing. So, yung mga nagko-connect nga dyan, itong mga yan. Those are ligature or connection or ductus. Next is long letter. So, those letters with both upper and lower loops. So, meron siyang ascender, meron din siyang descender. At ang letter lang na ganyan ay letter F. Okay. Next is loop. It is an oblong curve and oblong curve. Letter stroke F has two. Yan. So, a loop may be blind or open. Those are the two kinds of loops. A blind loop is usually the result of the ink having filled the open space. So, obviously, ito, open loop. Makikita nyo na may space pa sa gitna ng mga strokes na ito. But in blind loop, yung space ay napuno na ng ink. Kaya siya blind. Wala siyang space. Wala siyang makikita, kumbaga. Majuscule and minuscule. Pag sinabi nating majuscule, it is a capital letter. Pag sinabi ng minuscule, this is a small letter. Movement impulses. This refers to the continuity of stroke. Forged writing is usually produced by disconnected and broken movements and more motion or movement impulses than in genuine writing. So, for example, ito. Sa image, sa left side, yung word na continuality, tuloy-tuloy nga naman siya. But in this image, masasabi nating hindi siya tuloy-tuloy kasi inconsistent, madaming, disconnected and broken ang movements niya. Tignan niyo naman yung letter Y, tas ito, di ba? Ganun din ito. Yung imbis na diretso lang sa letter T, ang dami pang naging liku-liku niya dito. Okay. So, this is a movement impulse. When it is continuous. When your writing is continuous. Next is patching. This is retouching or going back over a defective portion of a stroke. Careful patching is common defect in forgeries. So this is the original. Ito yung actual. Okay. Pag patching, makikita to sa mga forge kasi yung mga feeling nila mali, aayusin nila. Babalikan nila yung naisulat na tapos aayusin nila katulad ng ginawa dito. Yan. So, this is patching. Binalikan yung hindi maayos nilang sulat. Kapag authentic writing kasi, kadalasan pag ganyan, tinatanggap na natin eh. Hindi na natin babalikan para i-correct. But, for forgers, inaayos nila para magmukhang kaparehas na kaparehas nung actual na sulat, nung pino-forge nila yung sulat. Yan. Kaya commonly seen in forged documents. Next is pen lift. Literal na nilift mo yung pen. So, an interruption in a stroke caused by removing the writing instrument from the paper. So, for example, ito. Umapak siya dito, di ba? Ito yung initial stroke. So, sinulat niya yung pen, then dito natapos. So, of course, nilift niya yung pen niya. Tapos, nagsulat siya ulit dito. Yan, sinulat niya yung lift. Tapos nilift niya yung pen here. And then sinulat yung diacritic ng letter I. Of course, after niya yon na mailagay ay nilift niya rin ulit. Then ganun din dito. In forgeries, makikita natin na merong mga pen lifts at unusual places. So yung mga pen lifts na ito, these are usual places. Talagang ililift mo yung pen mo dito. But for example, nag-stop dito sa ligature ng letter L and I. O kaya nag-stop dito sa kalagitnaan ng sender ng letter F na ito. That would be weird or uncommon to see in standard writing. Kaya alam natin, kapag ganun ang nangyari, may mali doon sa document na yon, malamang forged siya. Okay? Retrace or retracing any part of a stroke which is superimposed upon the original stroke. So, any stroke which goes back over another writing stroke. Kumbaga, meron ng stroke, tas naapakan niya yung unang stroke na yon. So, for example, vertical stroke of the letters DT while coming downward to the top bottom will have a retracing stroke. Katulad nito. Diba? Pag nagsulat ka ng letter T, upward stroke muna, then bababa. Ang nangyari sa sulat na to, naapakan niya rin yung stroke kung saan siya nag-upstroke. Kaya ang dating blind loop, and we call this retracing. Ganun din dito. Sa letter B and then sa dalawang letter T. Yan. Retrace. Naapakan mo yung original stroke. Next is shoulder. The outside portion of the top curve. Iba to sa hump, ha? Yung hump kasi yung buo. But yung shoulder nga lang, balikat, yung nasa gilid lang. So, ito, and ito. Sa letter M ay 3. Letter N has 2. And letter H has 1. Okay. Okay. Next is spur, a short initial or terminal stroke. So, katulad nito, this is a spur. Next is staff, any major long downward stroke that is the trunk or stalk normally seen in capital letters. So, ito yun. Staff. Yung, ayan nga, major long downward stroke. Capital letters lang ang meron. Yan. Next is tremor. A writing weakness portrayed by irregular shaky strokes. Nabanggit din natin to kanina. Kapag tremulous ang sulat sa isang document, of course, madaming paliwanag. Maaaring, baka may sakit yung tao, o kaya matanda na siya, kaya tremulous na. Or, forged writing yun. So, katulad nito, ang daming tremor. Actually, yung buong sulat ay tremulous. At hindi rin maayos, di ba? Wala namang ganyang letter O pa diamond. At makikita din natin na medyo makapal ang deposit ng ink. Ang interpretation natin dito, mabagal siyang nagsusulat at nanginginig siyang nagsusulat nito. Okay. Next is whirl. This is the upstroke of a looping ascender. So, ascender yan. Of course, may loop and then the upstroke. Ito yun. This is the whirl. Okay. We have linear letters. So, lowercase letters having no ascending loops or stems or descending loops or stems, sometimes called minuscule, and no capital letters. Basta linear letters, walang small letters ito na walang loop. Katulad ng A, C, E, M, N, O, R, S, U, V, W, X, Z. Yung mga yan. Those are linear letters. Okay, kasi nagkasya lang sa isang line. We also have supralinear and infralinear. Pag supralinear naman, meron ng ascender. Okay? Kasi, if you can notice, di ba, linear, kasya lang siya sa isang line na ganyan. Then, supralinear, above the line already. So, letters that extend a distance vertically above the linear letters. So, for example, examples are B, D, H, K, L, and T. Infralinear or descender naman, letters that extend a distance vertically below the baseline of the writing or of the linear letters. So, G, J, P, Q, Y, Z. Yan. Double length letters, or also known as long letters. Letter lang kasi letter F lang ang ganyan. Those few letters that extend a distance vertically both above and below the linear letters. F. Okay.